Mike, let's talk about Microsoft Excel. On a scale of 0 to 10, how likely are you to recommend Excel to your colleagues and friends?
Well, you know I'm an accountant, right? So I'm definitely giving it a 10 on that front. It's my second favorite piece of software to use.
And what would be your first?
Well, the cheesy answer there, FloQast is absolutely my number one piece of software to use.
So that's interesting. You give Microsoft Excel a 10, but some of our competitors feel very differently. And one of those is Blackline. They recently wrote a blog post, Stop Accounting Like It's 1999. And I'll read you this section from the blog post because I think you'll really like it.
Yep.
Unfortunately for 21st century finance professionals, spreadsheets are still sucking the life out of almost every modern accounting process. And like leeches, spreadsheets are highly unpredictable. But unlike leeches, spreadsheets are very, very dangerous. It's not just the aforementioned unpredictability or the potential for inaccuracies, or how one wrong digit can be duplicated once, twice, and on to infinity. Spreadsheets threaten the very foundation of modern accounting because they simply can't keep up with the pace of modern business. And that last bit is italicized.
Okay.
So I'd love to get your take on this, Mike.
I think it's a lot of good emotional words used and some solid marketing fodder. I think what's not understood is how accountants actually work on a day-to-day basis within that sentiment. Excel offers a lot of flexibility that you need to be good at your job inside of accounting. You know, the idea of getting rid of Excel kind of embraces this notion that everything's very standardized, it's very easy to do accounting, it's just transactions. That's not the case. Attempting to get rid of Excel just doesn't fully appreciate an accountant's job, and it's something that's necessary to work on a day-to-day basis.
So let's dig into that a little bit. There are some common arguments against Excel, and I'd like to put those to you and
for sure.
Get your take. So number one, this one has been going around for a while, spreadsheets are full of errors.
If you're not good at your job, you could have some errors in there, for sure. There is one study that just keeps getting kicked around, right? It's saying that 97% of spreadsheets have errors in them. And you see this thing quoted in their material, you see it in Forbes articles, I think I've seen it in the Wall Street Journal. And I finally got to the point, I'm like, I need to check out the source of this information. And so I started Googling around, and I found it's from this study that was performed in 1998 by someone at the University of Hawaii. It is an incredibly limited sample set. It was done, as a one-off research paper, and it's shocking to me that 20 years later, it's still being quoted as an attempt to discredit Excel. I think it's almost comical to suggest that everyone has an error in their spreadsheet. And again, it is a reflection on the person building the spreadsheet, right? If you're a good accountant, you're good at what you're doing, you're not going to have an error in there. You will have had it reviewed. It's prepared by one person, reviewed by another. It's going to go through audit. So everything's going to be fine as long as you have confidence in your own Excel abilities.
Yeah, that's interesting you found the source of that because I never really understood that, how could 97% of spreadsheets have errors? I mean, mine definitely don't. And that brings up another interesting point, which is that there's pretty easy ways in Excel to lock down a workbook so that people can't edit certain ranges or cells, right? They don't have to be, easily modifiable.
Yeah, and that can be one of the weaknesses of Excel, right? As we get to the end of the month when we're closing the books and we've prepared this Excel workbook which supports our ERP, and we don't want that to change, and it can be opened and modified. So how do you take that risk away? Well, Excel put in a really simple locking feature where you can lock your workbook, it requires a password to make any changes, and you're good to go. We recognize that's a weakness of Excel at FloQast, and so some of the functionality that we build where we link the Excel workbook directly to your accounting system takes that pain point out of the equation as well. So one of the things we've actually thought about with Excel is we think it's great for a lot of things. We have recognized that there are some weaknesses around it. That ability to change after the fact is one of them, so we've taken that out of the picture. The other one we don't really talk about is Excel is being used for the close checklist a lot. We'll start to speak to customers and they say, oh, we have our month-end close checklist, it's being tracked in Excel, and we don't think Excel is a good place for workflow management. It's not a workflow management tool, it's a data management tool, and it's a good way to work with numbers and figure out where errors are. So we take it out, we take the checklist, we put it in our application and allow them to keep using Excel for what it's really valuable for, which is reconciling, figuring out where errors are, and putting together complex workbooks.
So speaking of the close, another argument against Excel is that spreadsheets are difficult to organize.
I mean, I guess I have two responses to that. So organization is difficult regardless of the file type. A PDF is difficult to organize, a Word document is difficult to organize. That the type of document does not matter on that front. And we also actually appreciated that challenge, with every type of document. And so one of the things we've done inside of FloQast is we've created really a codified way to organize your documentation. And we actually help you maintain that. So we roll forward what we call a folder structure every month so that things are organized in the same way every single month, so that when you want to go back in time and review something, it's easy to find. When the auditors come out for audit season, they can find the documents, or your team can go back, find a document really easily and share it with the auditor. So organization is a pain, regardless of what you're trying to organize. That is something we've acknowledged, and we've tried to take the kind of administrative work out of organizing your close, basically.
I love it.
Me too.
So one criticism of enterprise solutions is that they are expensive. Let's talk about that versus FloQast.
Yeah, enterprise solutions, very expensive. You start looking at things for the Fortune 500 versus software for the mid-market. They're very different price points. And when you think about it, if you're a software company serving large companies, they all have very different needs. And so what you're going to have to do is tailor your software, your solution to them. So that requires a lot of configuration of the solution, a lot of customization of your software, which means setups are harder. But what it also means is as you scale up as a company and you add 1,000 or 2,000 users, you now have a really unwieldy code base, and it's very difficult to manage that. And so what you ultimately have to do is you have to increase pricing just to keep up with all the maintenance that needs to be done on your software. Right, so we at FloQast, we've taken a very different approach. A lot of mid-market companies are pretty similar, so we're able to offer, in a sense, a one-size-fits-all solution for them, which means setups are really easy, they're often running within 2 weeks, and then there's no need for us to configure a bunch of stuff, which means we have a lean and mean engineering team that puts out a lot of code and does a great job, and we're able to offer a better price point because it's just not, frankly, it's not as expensive for us to build a product.
Yeah, that's a great point. That when you build a product where the data is easy to get in and out of the system, you have to be better than your competition because there's not that barrier to people leaving. So that's great. And well, that goes right to my next question, which is about enterprise solutions locking you in, right? Which we have addressed in some respect. So let's talk more about where those reconciliation work papers live, because I think that's a little bit hazy in the minds of a lot of controllers.
Yeah.
So what file storage solutions are available, and how does FloQast actually keep everything organized in that way?
Well, I think a lot of companies, it's, it kind of starts on an internal shared drive if you're more of an old school company. The newer companies like FloQast, for example, when we were founded, we went on Google Drive immediately. So all of our documents are saved inside of Google Drive. And from there, it's just about figuring out how you want to organize everything. So what's the kind of folder structure you want to use to break up your documentation and save it? And we noticed, as former accountants, we understand that there's a pretty standard and logical way to do that, which is breaking everything up by year, and then by month, and then by balance sheet account. So you want to be able to assess everything by a period and then by a balance sheet account. So that's exactly what we do with our clients. We build on top of a cloud storage provider, so we're integrating directly with that. We're helping establish your folder structure up front, and then when every new month rolls around, like today's February 1st, so today all of our customers' February folders were recreated within our application. They automatically have fresh folder structure, fresh checklist items with updated deadlines. They can roll forward documents if they want to really keep it clean. And so we offer all those benefits of just taking this admin work out of a pretty silly process.
Final question. The focus on mid-sized companies, what was it that drove you to choose that as the target market for FloQast? Why not the Fortune 500?
It was not necessarily a very specific choice I made up front. The reason we built for the mid-market is because that's where I come from. That's the world I know. When I was an auditor with Ernst & Young, I was auditing mid-market production companies. So like Lionsgate Entertainment, we're talking companies of maybe $1 billion market cap size public companies. They have very different needs than General Electric, Coca-Cola, all those types of companies. So I first saw the pain point as an auditor at a mid-market company, and then when I moved over to Cornerstone On Demand, which is a mid-market software company, I joined about a year before the IPO, and I just had these pain points as a mid-market company that I knew, and so when I left and founded FloQast, I built something that would have solved my own personal problems, basically. That doesn't happen to fit for Coca-Cola, but that's fine. There are a lot of mid-market companies that have problems with the close, and we're more than happy to help them out.